Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be discussing a very commonly asked question: which is the better Nexomon, Nexomon 1 or Nexomon 2, aka Nexomon Extinction? Now, from an outsider perspective, one might state that Extinction is a sequel with more features than Nexomon 1 and more updated functions, therefore it's an objectively better title. However, there's actually a lot more nuance to it, as both Nexomon games actually have features that I and many others prefer over one another, making which game you think is better more subjective rather than one might initially suspect. That said, in this video we will briefly discuss the features that each game has that the other lacks or does differently, and then I'll give you guys my opinion on which is better. However, ultimately it is up to you to decide based on the information that you have. Okay, so starting with Nexomon 1, these are a few of the pros that I believe carries it over Extinction despite it being a prequel. Number 1, move diversity. So yes, there is more move diversity, and I think this is a major player when it comes to Nexomon 1's advantages here. I always like to use my electric bird boy as an example for this, but basically in Nexomon 2, most Nexomon only learn moves of their own typing and normal moves, whereas in the first game, many Nexomon learn moves of a variety of different types, like Mr. Thickness over here utilizing wind type moves despite it being an electric type. This for me is actually huge, as in my opinion it makes the games a lot more fun to battle in, since having a type disadvantage doesn't mean you just have to switch. I definitely like to see this make a return in Nexomon 3. Number 2, skill swapping. Another feature related to moves that I quite appreciate in Nexomon 1 is the ability to swap in and out your moves from the party menu instead of via an NPC like in Nexomon Extinction. Being able to switch your moves on the fly is a really good mechanic, and I definitely think it's something that should also make a return for Nexomon 3. Number 3, level curve. The next point is a little debatable depending on what you like, but since Nexomon 1 is more linear, I found that the level curve is a lot better than in Extinction. I think this is due to the fact that the levels are more catered towards the progression of the plot rather than the level of your team, but I did find it noteworthy nonetheless. Number 4, Nexomon designs. This one is probably going to be the most controversial point on my entire list, but I personally prefer the designs within Nexomon 1 over the designs to Extinction. Now, that's not to say the designs in Nexomon Extinction are bad, just that I think the original designs are superior as a collection. There are a ton of Nexomon that I really like from Extinction, like Voltaic and Tresor, but I can name dozens that I really like from the first. Now, that said, and we'll get into this in a bit, a lot of the designs I do really like and think are quite cool from Nexomon 1 end up being common or uncommon, so they're not very useful, but we'll get into that a bit. That's its own can of worms. Number 5, the Netherworld. Okay, so this final point I have in favor of Nexomon 1 might be a little unfair since the Nexomon Extinction Abyssals update hasn't launched yet, but the post-game content in Nexomon 1 is much appreciated, and as cool as custom mode is, you just can't beat more story content. The rebirth mechanic is also really cool, as is the aesthetic of the area. I actually made a review for the post-game / expansion content, so you can check that out if you'd like. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the ways that Nexomon Extinction outdoes Nexomon 1. Number 1, content. Now, this is a pretty broad topic, but basically Nexomon 2 outdoes the original in all aspects with regards to the amount of content present. Firstly, the game took me twice as long to get through, as there's more map to explore, more Nexomon to catch, more trainers to battle, which can be rematched by the way, actual side quests to partake in, more story related events, collectibles such as companions and vault keys, and more. The game definitely feels more like it was made for consoles and Steam rather than Nexomon 1 that feels like it was made for mobile but ported over. I mean, these feelings make sense because that's exactly how these games were designed. Number 2, battle diversity. Okay, so while Nexomon 1 has better move diversity, Nexomon 2 has better battle diversity, if you will. Firstly, the game has something called cores, which you can attach to your Nexomon in order to buff certain stats or even utilize them for XP grinding or money farming. The battles also contain a wider variety of status conditions that are far less broken than in Nexomon 1, and in general, I'd say the perfect battle system for Nexomon 3 would be a combination of the current system available within Nexomon 2, but utilizing the move diversity from Nexomon 1. The game also adds more functionality for the catching system, and while the minigame is kind of annoying, the variety of different Nexo traps and the berries make it a lot more engaging. Number 3, custom mode. Now, I know that I used the Netherworlds as a point for Nexomon 1, but the custom mode is also no slouch, allowing for basically an infinite amount of replayability to the game. Furthermore, once the Abyssals DLC comes out, depending on its scope, it may just end up being another example of the game having objectively more content, as both will have expansions, while Extinction will have a custom mode on top of this. The custom mode itself set the bar for monster taming games as a whole, so it's honestly no surprise that I'd hold it in high regard. Number 4 is the open world. Nexomon Extinction features a semi-open world, allowing for the player to explore various areas at their leisure as opposed to forcing linearity like its prequel. This allows the player to capture a wider array of Nexomon from their team right off the bat, as opposed to only being able to get certain types based on the biomes in which you must explore in a set order. The maps themselves just feel more open and they're more fun to explore, unlike Nexomon 1, which basically has you running in a straight line. Number 5, the rarity issue has been fixed. Kinda. Now, while I will say that the rarity system still plays a major role in determining which Nexomon are the best, the system has been fixed quite a bit, so there's not the massive disparity like in Nexomon 1. In Nexomon 1, uncommons only evolve once and commons don't evolve at all, whereas all rare and mega rare Nexomon are part of 3-stage lines. In Extinction, rarity and evolution are not tied together, with some mega rares not having any evolutions and some commons being part of 3-stage lines. While it definitely still feels like the commons and uncommons are pretty bad in comparison to their rarer counterparts, they're still a lot more useful than in Nexomon 1. So yeah guys, that was just a quick rundown of 5 points in favor for Nexomon 1 being better and 5 points in favor of Nexomon Extinction being better. Which game is better will obviously come down to preference, and while both games are good for different reasons, in my personal opinion, I do think Nexomon Extinction is the better game, but Nexomon 1 is still very enjoyable. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what are your favorite aspects of each game? If you are a fan of Nexomon or just the monster taming genre in general, definitely subscribe for more monster taming content. Thanks so much for watching, and special thanks to our patrons, especially StealCase and Jim Hamilton. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.